you like what you're hearing, you can support me on Patreon, patreon.com/mtgbooks. Chapter 3. Yawgmoth sat up in bed, sheets draping him. He'd spent months in this apartment, beginning to feel like home. Morning sunlight streamed through eastern skylights. The high windows above the western wall of the upper city floated in golden panorama. This was typical of Rebecca's designs. Her architecture always drew the eye upward, the feet afterward. Entryways lay in the east, place of origins, and on the lowest level. By rising through a gentle turn, the entrant came to see a spectacular view of the west, place of destinies. Council hall, amphitheater, palaces, temples, the skyline of the 8th terrace presented a visual feast. By way of gentle stairs, the viewer rose toward that vision. The architecture of ascension, Rebecca called it, transforming all who entered. The bed was another entranceway, admitting a person from the land of dream. Yawgmoth had just arrived from such a place. He had been visiting Rebecca there. His dreaming eye had seen her approach, bearing a perfect world in her arms. Except it hadn't been a perfect world, but her disease-ridden husband.
Hideous,
Yawgmoth yawned. Glacian suffered from phthisis, progressive degeneration. Magic only exasperated it. Removing the power stone from Glacian's wheeled chair had allowed the lesions on his back to clear up. Other advances came more slowly. Yawgmoth had found plenty of microbial organisms. Little beasties was the name he used. The various samples harvested from his patient, but all were secondary infections. The primary microbes were elusive. Yawgmoth began to wonder if the creature he sought bridged the worlds of flesh and magic, affecting both but residing in neither. I just may find out today. In search of answers, he was bound for the filthiest, darkest place in Halcyon, the Caves of the Damned. This warren of caverns below the Manorig was home to the criminal outcasts of Halcyon, the Untouchables. They were rife with phthisis. Surely Glacian had been infected by the man who stabbed him. Find that man, he would find the source of the disease. The Caves of the Damned had once been a penal colony, where the city shipped all its incorrigibles. Thieves and murderers were sent down into brimstone darkness. There, they were to farm mushrooms and catch blind-eyed fish and carve obsidian. There, they were to learn communal cooperation or die. Some learned too well. They banded together, overthrew their counselors and facilitators, and took over the caves. Every attempt Halcyon made to force a surrender resulted in dead negotiators. War was declared. The Halcite Guard marched down to reclaim the caves. Prisoners fought viciously in their own element. At last, the city relented. It sealed off all but one entry into the caves, posted a garrison there to prevent upward incursions. Though the city had lost control of its penal colony, it had not lost a repository for its human refuse. Every day, chained parades of prisoners trooped down into the darkness. Their crimes were serious enough to result in the renunciation of their citizenship. Citizens of Halcyon were allowed to descend into the caves to visit relatives, to minister to the ill, to do whatever they dared beyond the reach of law and reason. One's weapons were identified, and the citizen could not emerge unless all weapons came back with him. Some citizens even drifted down there to remain. Lunatics and indignants, laggards, disaffected youths, perverts, brawlers, and any number of others who found life in heaven more hellish than life in hell. As Rebecca had once said, Halcyon was a place of ascension, and some people preferred to descend. Today, Yawgmoth was one of those folk. He donned his old travel robes. The leather was cleaned and mended, at Rebecca's insistence. Even when tattered, they had been proof against daggers in the back. The metal plates and ringmail sewn into the lining made sure of that. These were robes that had guarded him against attacks of orcs and lizard men. Surely they would ward off the diseased. Into one interior pocket, he tucked metal flasks and a set of scalpels. Into another, he slipped 3 Power Stone lanterns. 2 long coils of rope lay in bags by the door. About his waist, Yawgmoth stripped a wide belt with daggers, darts, and a pair of swords, all dipped in poison. Yawgmoth felt at home in the company of the damned. There's nothing we can do for you once you descend, shouted the guard captain from the embankment above the Caves of the Damned. There was never anything you could do for me, Yawgmoth called back over his shoulder. He stood above a stone shaft that descended into utter darkness. The space seemed a mucousy larynx Yawgmoth had cut open once, and a chill breath came up from the black heart of the world. The thousands of others who had descended here had etched a switchback path along one slanting wall. Yawgmoth had no patience to descend as others. He stooped to check the cable he had knotted to the stone column, then flung the vast coil out into the unlit space beneath him. Rope unwound. The loop disappeared down the giant stone throat. It yanked tight and slapped the wall. Wrapping the rope around him once, Yawgmoth stowed his lantern on his belt. He donned steel-palmed gloves, clutched one hand on the rope above, clamped the other on the strands below. They'll find out you've no kin there. They'll strip your weapons, and kill you, and eat you, Captain insisted. Cannibals, madmen, monsters. Madmen, monsters, and me, Yawgmoth declared. He flung himself out into the empty air. He hung there for a moment, then plummeted. Cord whirred through his hands. The lantern flickered. Gold light cast a ring across the cave walls. Yawgmoth tightened his grip. The rope snapped taut. Yawgmoth extended his legs, seeing his own shadow loom up across the wall. His feet struck stone, pushed off again, and released the whirring line. Rippling walls slid upward past him. He plunged. The cave air grew colder and wetter as he descended. Blackness above the blackness below. Yawgmoth inhabited a slim ring of light. Each time his feet struck stone, the lantern flickered. Loose power stone threatened to go out. There's the sort of claustrophobic moment that would unhinge the minds of most men and women, but Yawgmoth needed neither light nor solid ground to be at home. He needed only himself. One bound brought him down beside a ledge. The circle of light revealed a pile of bones, the remains of travelers who had slipped from the path and landed in broken heaps. The fall had killed them. Something had eaten them. Cave crickets, roaches, mice, perhaps the damned themselves. Down farther, Yawgmoth passed a rag-garbed woman making the ascent. She cowered in the shadow of a stalagmite. She had a light with her. It was hidden beneath her shabby clothes. Yawgmoth's swift approach must have been terrifying to her. He looked directly into her eyes and flashed her a glittering smile. Her look of fear deepened. Yawgmoth brought his boots thudding to ground beside her hiding place. He locked his gaze with hers, then he pushed off and plunged farther. The woman clambered from hiding, ignited her own light, crude thing of oil and wick, scrambled up the treacherous trail. Yawgmoth continued down. For a time, there was only the whir of line through steel-palmed gloves, rhythm of boots striking stone. The first rope had been 1,000 feet long, with knots along its last 50. He reached those knots now and stopped to tie off the 500-foot length he carried at his waist. It bore him down past more of the same until the knots in its end struck his hands. He pulled up short, dangling in midair beneath an overhang. He fetched the lantern from his waist and held it out. The shaft descended straight away into murk. But in that murk, figures moved. They were human, or once had been. Perpetual darkness had given their skin an otherworldly pallor. Their eyes were wide, black in their faces. Frown lines creased their mouths. Blade scars creased cheeks and jaws. Filthy clothes draped gaunt frames. The larger males wore the thickest, cleanest, and newest garments. A giant of a man stood at the center of the crowd. He was taller than Yawgmoth and double his weight. Garbed in warm wool and provisioned with weapons, he was a man of considerable influence and ability. You better start climbing back up, spider, the man growled. No guards here. Dangling above, Yawgmoth said, I'm not a guard, I'm a healer. Angry laughter rattled among the dam. The giant said, a man who heals with swords. A healer who knows blades both small and large, Yawgmoth replied. Why would a healer come here? Asked the giant, circumspectly motioning some of his folk to climb to the ledge above Yawgmoth. I seek a man with a deadly disease that is ravaging your people, Yawgmoth said. Craven figures made their way up the path. The giant hissed, My people? My people? Since when do you parasites care about my people? Yawgmoth saw no reason to lie. Since the artificer Glacian has become infected with the plague, I want to find the man who stabbed him. That man still lives. It was in the last raid on the Mana Rig, a little over a year ago. A prisoner stabbed a white-haired man who stood in the charging chamber. I want to find that prisoner, to study the disease that is killing him and Glacian, and many others here as well. I can map the stages of the degeneration. I can discover the factors leading. His words were cut short, along with the rope that held him aloft. Yawgmoth plunged 30 feet toward the cave floor. Prisoners scattered below him. Only the giant remained. Yawgmoth dropped to the ground and rolled, came up standing, a pair of blades flashing out. They struck the giant's own blades, already converging to take off his head. He flung back the steel and ducked under and away. The giant man lunged after him. Yawgmoth was too quick. He spun. Swords cracked against the prisoner's metal, cut a shallow trough in his side. Yawgmoth staggered back and caught his breath. The giant paused. He dragged a bloody hand from the wound.
If I'm gonna add this sword-toting healer to my 530 kills, I'd like to know his name.
I am Yawgmoth. Soon all of you will know that name. You'll know it. Be glad you know it. He charged the giant, his swords carving separate arcs toward the man. All but you. You'll be dead. Yawgmoth battered back his foe's defenses and speared inward. Steel darted tongue-like and tasted the man's blood again. His sword emerged crimson.
And what underworld king have I the honor of killing?
Gore draped the man's teeth as he staggered back, smiling. His underlings sniggered in the shadows.
King? I'm only a gate guard. I'm Doran the gate guard.
As though insulted, Yawgmoth sheathed his swords. You're not even that anymore. His hand flicked from his belt. A dart leapt through the air, quivered in Doran's forehead. He stood for a moment more, poison spreading through his brain. That gory grin was his last expression. The man went down like a felled tree. Yawgmoth calmly walked to the fallen man and stepped onto his back. He turned slowly about. His eyes pinned the others one by one to the wall. I have more poison darts here. Enough for 5 of you. There are also daggers, swords, and other devices. Everyone will get his turn, or perhaps you can believe me and conduct me inward. An old woman spoke out of the darkness.
Who but a soldier would come looking for the man who stabbed a genius?
It no longer matters to you what I am, soldier or healer. It only matters that I may turn my attentions on someone else. Do you care if I plan to kill the man? Care instead whether I will first kill you.
I'll take you to him,
said a boy. The voice was shrill and determined, immediately drowned out by a chorus of objecting adults. They clustered above him. Someone began to drag the protesting child deeper into the caves.
Away from him,
shouted Yawgmoth. He charged toward the mob. Anyone near the boy will die. Like frightened rats, they scattered back once more. Only the boy was left. His cheeks showed red marks where someone had clamped a hand over his mouth. Fear shone in his wide eyes. But he did not stagger away like the others. Yawgmoth halted before him and went to one knee. He fixed the child with a piercing stare. You know who stabbed the man a year ago in the manor rig? The lad nodded. Yawgmoth extended his hand toward the lad. Lead me to him. The boy led Yawgmoth forward into a low, sloping passage that wound unevenly down into the darkness. The boy was sure-footed on those rumpled stones. Yawgmoth was left so. He clung to the child with one hand and held out his power stone light with the other. The light flickered feebly before them. Behind came the furtive steps of others, following. Here and there, dark archways opened into side chambers. Haunted eyes stared out. Steel glinted. The boy turned down none of these. Yawgmoth spoke, his voice watery against the stone. Where are we going? Where is this man? The boy answered easily.
He's in the quarantine cave with the others.
Ah, very good, Yawgmoth said with a nod. Quarantine cave.
Whenever someone gets sick, they send him there.
Keep it from spreading, Yawgmoth supplied. That's good. The boy shook his head.
Still, it's spreading.
They reached the base of the winding passage, opened out onto a lofty shelf. Below spread an enormous cavern. It seemed a valley in the world above, its vault dark with night and its base glimmering with tiny fires. All about those fires, faces huddled. Figures slept in cold bundles nearby. There were thousands in that cavern. A few lifted their eyes to see the new arrivals. A tall man, a small boy, their light stabbing uselessly out into the overwhelming darkness.
This is it?
Yawgmoth asked, stunned.
Yes,
said the boy.
the quarantine cave.
Everyone here has ISIS? The sickness?
Everyone.
Yawgmoth crouched down beside him. Not this time to look him in the eye, but to steady himself, to hide his own eyes from the sight before him. He is here. The man who stabbed Glacian. The man from the manor rig. The boy's tone was utterly solemn.
Yes, he's here. His name is Gix.